Hey, welcome to the series that triggers my fear of being seen. No, not that type of scene. I've already conquered that fear. Hey queens, welcome back, or welcome for the first time, to Sew and the City, the series where I recreate iconic looks from Sex and the City. This episode, we're making this dress from the episode where Carrie shows up to Big's engagement party and spews movie quotes at that unsuspecting man for some reason.
Your girl is lovely, Helen.
I don't get it.
We've all been there, right? Quick note, I just want to address the fact that there are a lot more of you here now than there were before. It's no longer just me, my mom, and two friends from college watching. Here's what you'll need. 2 yards of an outer fabric. I chose a stretch satin. It's all cut on the bias, but the stretch satin gave it a little bit more give. And you'll need 2 yards of a lining fabric. I chose just some polyester option. I'm sorry. Again, I would love to make this dress out of a nice silk. And that's where you come in. Hit that subscribe button. You will need very, very, very basic sewing skills. Depending on how you put the lining in, there's a few options for that. You will also need very, very basic pattern drafting skills. This is just copying 2 articles of clothing you already have and adjusting the neckline. That's it. So let's go work on this fear of commitment together. So for the pattern, I took a tank top that is cropped and it hits my natural waistline, and then I had a pattern I'd already traced from a maxi skirt that came to my natural waistline. Then I joined them at the waist and traced around them. I also adjusted the length. I made it a little bit shorter because the skirt I traced was a maxi and this dress is more of a midi. Once you've traced it, you're going to edit the pattern a little bit. I pulled the shoulder seam out 1 inch and then redrew the armhole, because if you look at the dress Carrie's wearing, the shoulder seam comes out a little bit further than the tank top I had. Then I adjusted the neckline. I made it this deep U, but it does come to a point at the center front. So it is more of a rounded V-neck. And you want that V point at the center front to be sharp enough that you can pivot your sewing foot when you're sewing the lining and the outer together. Then you'll cut 2 of these out of your lining fabric on the bias. That means you'll place your pattern pieces at a 45-degree angle on the fabric. Cutting on the bias is what gives these dresses that nice drape and that little bit of give that allows them to be slipped over the head without a zipper. Now you're going to take those 2 pieces of fabric and clip or pin them at the shoulder seams and at the side seams, and you're just going to sew up the side seams and along the shoulder seams. This lining kind of had 2 purposes. I used it to check the fit and to line my piece, and once I checked the fit and everything looked good, I cut it out of my outer fabric. You're also going to cut this out on the bias just like you did the lining pieces. This fabric was a stretch satin. You don't have to use a stretch satin, it just gave mine a little bit more give. You can use pretty much any fabric for this as long as it has a nice drape to it. Now sew those 2 pieces together along the side seams and the shoulder seams just like you did with the lining. There's 2 ways to add the lining. You can either bag the lining or do the neckline and then do the armholes separately, which is what I did. I'll link how to bag the lining. I can't explain that the best way, but I can show you how I did the armholes. So I sewed bias tape to my armholes and sewed it along this line, if you can see it here. I'll link how to turn the bias tape into a loop because that was kind of complicated and I didn't get a good video. But then you'll turn that bias tape towards the lining. You can sew it on a machine, but I hand sewed mine with an invisible stitch. This is definitely more tedious, but I actually really love hand sewing. It gives things a more polished finish and it gives you more control. There are so many ways to hand sew things together that are completely invisible on the outside of your project. This is also a quick shout out to clips, using clips instead of pins. I have been sewing for nearly 20 years and I just now bought my first set of clips and I'm obsessed. They come in really handy when you're sewing with slippery fabrics or really fragile fabrics that you don't want to leave holes in. They also just prevent things from shifting like crazy. Pins always make your fabrics shift around. And if you're curious how I did my invisible stitch, I just kind of sewed through the fold of the bias tape and then went down and grabbed a little stitch of the lining, pulled it back up, and then went back into the fold of the bias tape. And then I just did that around the entirety of the armhole. Now you can go ahead and hem the bottom of the lining and the outer fabric. I would recommend a tiny rolled hem as to not add too much weight to the hem of the dress. Oh hey, have you been waiting for me? Well, I'm back. You don't have to wait anymore. And I'm done with the dress. It's here. I think this one turned out really great. There's one thing I would do differently, and that is add more ease to my pattern. The dress is a little tight. It's a little difficult to get on and off without smearing my makeup all over the white fabric. However, the girls sit well because it is so tight. And that is not an issue for me. Is it an issue for other people? Depends who you ask. But if you want something that isn't super tight and you're making this dress, add more ease to your pattern. Carrie's is clearly a little bit looser than mine is. The shape of the dress is quite similar. The neckline, I'm proud to say, very accurate. The fabric, different. I used, again, a polyester stretch satin, a lot shinier than Carrie's because hers is likely silk. But the reason why I'm making all these dresses is because I don't have money for vintage designer currently. So work on that later. Next week, let's talk next week. Next week is this dress, which is the Body is Tea dress, as I'm coining it. See the T-E-E? It's not actually a t-shirt dress. There would be sleeves. But I thought that was clever, right? Okay. I'm a wordsmith on occasion. This dress is going to be very simple to make, very beginner friendly. You are using stretch fabrics, some techniques from my Miranda tank top episode, but I will go into depth on how to sew armhole bindings in that one, so you don't have to go give another creator your views. It's all in-house this episode, baby. I told you I was afraid you would leave me, so I have to keep you here. But that's next week. And I'm, again, very glad that you have joined me here. It's not like I blew up or anything, but I feel like I've gotten some good support from you guys, and it's difficult for me to be emotionally available with a phone made out of materials that child laborers mine for. I'm sorry to bring that up right now. But it's difficult. This is a piece of machinery, and I'm speaking to it, and I'm thanking it, you. This is still foreign to me. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining me. And if this is the first episode you're watching and you're subscribing, thank you. It actually means a lot to me, and I don't need to get into all of that because you're my subscribers, not my therapists. But thank you for working on your fear of commitment with me on this episode in more ways than one. I'll see you next week. I hope that you stick around continuously and enjoy this journey with me. Thank you. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Bye.